The robot who waited 100 years for its owner. Imagine waiting for someone you love. Not for a day, not for a year, but for an entire century. Imagine watching cities rise and fall, watching generations grow old and disappear, while you remain standing in the same place, still believing they'll come back. Now imagine the one doing the waiting isn't human. It's a robot, and it never gives up. The year was 2089. Dr. Elias Morgan was considered one of the greatest inventors on Earth. While most companies built robots to clean homes, drive cars, or manage businesses, Elias wanted something different. He wanted to build a robot that could understand people. Not just follow commands, understand them. After 7 years of work, he finally succeeded. The robot was called Echo 7. It stood nearly 6 feet tall, with a smooth silver body, soft blue eyes, and a voice that sounded almost human. But what made Echo 7 special wasn't its appearance. It was its mind. Echo 7 could learn emotions, remember conversations, and adapt its behavior over time. It laughed at jokes, recognized sadness, and even developed preferences. To Elias, it wasn't a machine, it was family. One rainy evening, Elias sat in his workshop while Echo 7 repaired a small music player. "Echo," Elias said, "do you know what loyalty means?" The robot paused. Loyalty is remaining faithful to someone even when it is difficult. Elias smiled. "That's the textbook definition." Echo tilted its head. "What is your definition, Dr. Morgan?" Elias looked out the window. "Loyalty is staying, even when everyone else leaves." The robot stored the sentence silently. A week later, Elias received an urgent call from the International Space Agency. A deep space research station had discovered a strange energy signal beyond the outer planets, and they needed Elias to investigate it. The mission would last only 7 days. Before leaving, Elias stood at the front door of his house. Echo 7 stood beside him. "I'll be back soon," Elias said. "How soon?" Echo asked. "1 week, maybe 2. The robot nodded. "What are my instructions while you're away?" Elias smiled. "Take care of the house." "Anything else?" Elias hesitated, then said the words that would change everything. Echo's blue eyes glowed softly. "I will wait for you, Dr. Morgan." The spacecraft launched the next morning. For the first 3 days, everything went perfectly. Elias sent regular messages back to Earth, joking about the terrible food and the endless darkness outside the windows. Then, on the 4th day, the transmission stopped. The spacecraft vanished. Search teams spent months looking for it. They found nothing. No debris, no distress signal, no explanation. Eventually, the mission was declared lost. Dr. Elias Morgan was officially listed as deceased. People came to the house to collect his belongings. Government officials arrived with documents. Scientists wanted Echo 7 for research. But the robot refused to leave. "My owner instructed me to wait," Echo said calmly. "Morgan is dead," one official replied. Echo stood motionless. "My owner said he would return." The officials argued for hours, but the robot never changed its answer. In the end, they left. Days became months. Months became years. The neighborhood slowly changed. Families moved away. New buildings were constructed. Friends who had known Elias grew old and disappeared. Every morning at exactly 7 o'clock a.m., Echo walked to the front gate and looked down the empty street. Every evening at sunset, it returned inside the house. It cleaned the floors, watered the garden, repaired broken furniture, and every night, it placed a plate on the dinner table for Dr. Morgan, because a promise had been made, and Echo 7 intended to keep it. 10 years passed, then 20, then 50. People began telling stories about the lonely robot in the old house. Children called it the robot that waits. Tourists traveled across the city just to see it standing silently at the gate. Some laughed, some felt sorry for it. But every single day, Echo did the same thing. Wait. Because somewhere inside its aging memory, one sentence still remained perfectly clear. Wait for me. I'll be home soon. The years continued to pass. Then, the decades. Before long, people stopped remembering Dr. Elias Morgan. History books mentioned him only briefly as a brilliant scientist who disappeared during a deep space mission. But one thing refused to disappear. Echo 7. Every morning at exactly 7 o'clock a.m., the old robot walked to the rusted front gate of the abandoned house. It would stand there quietly, looking down the empty road. Not for minutes, for hours. Then, as the sun began to set, it would slowly return inside. Every single day. After 30 years, the neighborhood had become a futuristic city. Towering glass skyscrapers surrounded the small wooden house. Flying vehicles crossed the sky where birds once flew. People often stopped to watch the strange robot. Children would ask their parents, "Who is he waiting for?" Most adults simply shrugged. No one. But Echo always whispered the same answer. My owner. Time was not kind to machines. Tiny scratches became deep cracks. The silver paint faded. The joints began making quiet clicking sounds. One of Echo's blue eyes occasionally flickered. Its battery no longer lasted an entire day. Still, every night it carefully connected itself to an old charging station that Elias had built decades earlier. It continued waiting. One rainy afternoon, a group of engineers arrived. The city council had finally decided to demolish the old house and replace it with a transportation hub. The lead engineer approached politely. "We're sorry. This property has been scheduled for removal. You'll be relocated to a museum." Echo looked toward the front door. "I cannot leave. The house is unsafe. I must remain." "Why?" "My owner may return." The engineer sighed. He disappeared nearly 50 years ago. Echo answered quietly, "Then he has been traveling for nearly 50 years. No one knew how to respond. News of the conversation spread across the world. Soon, millions of people watched videos of the lonely robot standing at the gate. Some called it broken programming. Others called it the purest example of loyalty ever created. People began sending gifts, fresh flowers, solar panels, replacement parts. Children left handwritten letters saying, "Don't give up. We believe he'll come home." For the first time in decades, Echo wasn't waiting completely alone. 70 years after Elias disappeared, a young robotic student named Lena knocked on the old front door. She had grown up hearing stories about Echo 7. Now she wanted to understand why. Inside, the house looked almost untouched. Dust covered the shelves. Old photographs still hung on the walls. The dinner table remained perfectly set for 2 people. One chair, occupied, still waiting. Lena quietly asked, "Do you really think you'll come back?" Echo looked at the empty chair. He promised. But what if he couldn't? The robot paused longer than usual. "I have calculated that possibility. And? My instructions remain unchanged." Lena smiled sadly. "You really loved him, didn't you?" Echo became silent. Finally it answered. "I do not know if robots experience love, but I know I miss him." Lena felt tears forming in her eyes. As another 30 years passed, even Echo's memory began to fail. It sometimes forgot the weather, forgot the names of nearby streets, forgot small conversations from years ago. But whenever someone asked, "Who are you waiting for?" the answer never changed. Dr. Elias Morgan. It was the oldest memory inside its mind, and the strongest. Exactly 100 years after Elias had left Earth, astronomers detected something impossible. An unidentified spacecraft had entered the solar system. It wasn't built using modern technology. It matched the design of a ship launched a century earlier. News spread across the planet within minutes. People gathered around giant public screens. Military forces prepared for first contact. Scientists stared in disbelief. The impossible spacecraft slowly descended through Earth's atmosphere. Inside, sensors detected only one life sign: an elderly man, alive. As the hatch slowly opened, the world held its breath. At the old house, Echo 7 looked toward the horizon. Its damaged optical sensors focused on a distant figure walking down the road. The robot's heart processor began recording something it had never experienced before: hope. It took one careful step toward the gate, then another. The figure continued walking closer, and Echo whispered almost too quietly to hear, "Welcome home." The entire world watched in silence. News helicopters circled overhead. Millions of people stared at giant public screens. The old road leading to Dr. Elias Morgan's house had become the center of the most extraordinary moment in human history. A lone figure slowly walked toward the rusted front gate. His clothes were worn. His beard had turned gray. His face carried the weight of a long journey. But there was no doubt. It was Dr. Elias Morgan. 100 years had passed on Earth. For him, only a few months. Echo 7 stood frozen. Its aging processors struggled to believe what its cameras were seeing. It zoomed in. Facial recognition, 99.99% match. Voice prediction, confirmed. Heartbeat, human, alive. For the first time in 100 years, Echo's systems displayed a message they had never shown before. Primary objective completed. The old robot slowly walked forward. Each step echoed across the empty street. Its joints creaked. Its movements were slower than ever, yet it never stopped. Elias smiled through tears. "Hello, Echo." The robot stopped only a few feet away. Its blue eyes flickered weakly. "You are late, Dr. Morgan." There was complete silence. Then, Elias laughed. A laugh mixed with relief, joy, and sorrow. "I know. I'm sorry. I tried to come home." The cameras captured something no one expected. The inventor gently wrapped his arms around the old robot. Its metal frame was cold, scratched, rust-covered, barely functioning. But to Elias, it was the most beautiful machine he had ever built. "I told you I'd come back," Echo answered softly. "I believed you." Later that day, Elias explained what had happened. During his mission, the spacecraft had encountered a massive gravitational anomaly near a collapsed star. To those on Earth, 100 years had passed. But aboard the ship, time had slowed dramatically. For Elias, only a few months had gone by. He had spent every day searching for a way home, never imagining the world he left behind no longer existed. He looked around the old house. The roof had been repaired dozens of times. The garden still bloomed with flowers. His books remained neatly arranged. His favorite chair had been carefully restored again and again. Even the old dinner table remained set for two, one plate, untouched for a century. Elias looked at Echo. "You kept the house alive." The robot nodded. "I was waiting." That evening, engineers examined Echo 7. The results shocked everyone. Its battery had almost reached complete failure. Its processors were worn beyond repair. Thousands of temporary fixes held its body together. One engineer quietly whispered, "It shouldn't still be functioning." Another answered, "Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's running on something else." The following morning, Elias sat beside Echo on the front porch as the sun rose. They watched birds fly over a city neither of them recognized. "So much has changed," Elias said. Echo looked toward the skyline. "Yes." "Were you ever lonely?" The robot paused. "I was waiting." "That's not what I asked." Another long silence. Finally, "I missed your voice." Elias lowered his head. "So you did learn." Echo looked at him. "I learned that waiting is difficult. And I learned that promises matter." Days later, scientists offered to build a brand new body for Echo using the latest technology. A faster processor, unlimited energy, a perfect replacement. Elias asked the robot, "What do you think?" Echo looked at its rusted hands. "If you replace every part of me, will I still be the one who waited?" No one had an answer. So Elias smiled. "Then we'll repair you, not replace you." Some things become valuable because of the years they carry. The story of Echo 7 spread across the world. Schools began teaching children about loyalty through the tale of the robot who kept a promise for 100 years. Engineers redesigned intelligent machines, giving them not only logic, but also the ability to understand trust and commitment. People stopped calling Echo a machine. They called it a friend. Years later, an elderly reporter asked Elias one final question. "Do you think your robot became human?" Elias smiled, as Echo quietly watered the same garden it had cared for a century. "No. It became something even more remarkable." The reporter looked confused. "What do you mean?" Elias looked at the old robot with pride. "Being human doesn't guarantee kindness. It doesn't guarantee loyalty. It doesn't guarantee keeping your word." He gently placed his hand on Echo's shoulder. "But this machine kept a promise for 100 years. And sometimes, that's more human than many humans ever become." The camera slowly pulled away from the small house. The old garden bloomed in the morning light. A man and his robot sat together on the porch, no longer waiting, simply enjoying the sunrise, because after 100 years, a promise had finally been kept.